From the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg, this is a special edition of Inside Government with Cedric Peterson.
To our audience here at home and around the world, you are now Inside Government. If you've been following our series, Public Service Center celebrating 10 years of service to you, the people of St. Martin, and we are venturing inside the administration of government and speaking to the various departments that render those services to you directly. Our journey this week takes us into the Department of Civil Registry, and I'm joined by these beautiful ladies representing CVR. My guests are Miss Anna Marlin, she's Section Head Front Office at the Civil Registry, and Miss Kishan Huggins, who's a Senior Back Office Worker, who today in this interview is going to be wearing her front office hat because she's actually served in both roles. Ladies, it's great to have you in the program. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I want to first of all ask you, starting with you, Miss Marlin, how much years of service have you rendered in government?
I've been working at the Civil Registry Department for the past 15 years. I began the 16th of January 2008 as a civil servant, and I have remained at the Civil Registry Department for the past 15 years.
Wow, liked it that much, because normally people would jump from different sectors, but you've really kind of honed in on it. Where's your education? What's your educational background?
So I attended the Genevieve de Weaver Primary School.
Uh-huh.
After I graduated to the Milton Peters College, I did the TKL stream. Unfortunately, I didn't get to leave the island to further my studies, but at the Civil Registry Department, we were given various opportunities where we can follow different courses, enroll in different nationality courses, courses that help us to grow as individuals.
Yeah. You didn't think that you missed anything by not being able to leave?
I regret today not leaving.
Really?
Yes, I do.
That's interesting, because no people would say, I did what I needed to do, but how? How did you regret? Why do you regret it?
I regret not leaving because I didn't get the opportunity to get a higher education. That's one. And I didn't get to experience different places, countries on a different level than just being in St. Martin.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's interesting. That's a very interesting take. So what would you say to a young person who...
I encourage everyone that if they have the opportunity to leave, to go, to experience something different and see if they like it and make the best of it.
Absolutely. Ms. Huggins, what about yourself?
Yes.
Years in service, how many?
Yes, I have been working for the Civil Registry Department for about a little over 10 years now. Okay. I think it's either 11 or 12. While working there, I have learned a lot. Like my colleague also mentioned, I thought everyone was from St. Martin. But while working at the Civil Registry, I realized, we have a big variety of nationalities, persons from different places, all living here on this little 16 square miles. So I learned a lot. Also, she mentioned the different opportunities that we get. Mm-hmm. So the courses in nationality, courses in customer service, all to help us work better at our job.
And you guys are offering some great service, and I'm sure that the people of St. Martin appreciates all the efforts that you're making. Let's get into the actual services that we can, access at the Civil Registry now. Highlight those for us. What are the various services one can experience when they come to do business at the Civil Registry?
Okay, so we have quite a few services that we render to the public of St. Martin. A national ID card. We do driver's license renewal, driver's license transfer, booking of the examination of the exam, renewal of passport for an adult, renewal of a passport for a child. First-time application also is possible. We do legalization of signatures. We do apostille stamps. We issue birth certificates, death, marriage certificates, and divorce to persons that have been divorced, married, or deceased here in St. Martin.
What does the law stipulate when it comes to addresses? When it comes to one making sure that they're registered, what does the law stipulate as it relates to one having an address on St. Martin?
The law stipulates that the clients or the residents of St. Martin have to be on the correct address and that they have 5 days after they move to be on the correct address. It is also stipulated in the law that they can get a fine of 2,000 guilders if they're not on the correct address.
Really?
Yes, you do.
Wow. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're properly registered. And this effort that the Civil Registry is making, and it's nothing new. It's ongoing, actually. to clean up the civil registry. How is that process going so far?
The project, I must say, is very tedious
Okay.
because it's a lot of work. We do have persons that come in, hey, I'm still on this address, and we do have persons that we have noticed, some have passed for more than 20 years.
Really?
This project has really been a great help because we are encountering many persons that do not live on St. Martin. We are encountering persons that have deceased for many years. We have encountered persons that are not on the correct address. We have persons who are signing, giving permissions to persons that do not live on that address. And I want to bring this to the public attention. That is incorrect. Please, if you're doing it, refrain from doing so.
What documents can one present to the civil registry as proof that one is residing at a new address? What do they need to do?
We request a recent GB bill if you have one under your name. A lease agreement that is valid is also possible. We also accept address declaration from the VROMI department to change your address, and a valid identification. It can be your ID, passport, or driver's license. And this is free of charge. We do not charge to change of address. However, you need to make an appointment with the department to have your address changed.
And a document that one uses, how old is that allowed to be?
We don't really have a time limit, but however, we would request, as recent as possible. So for example, the lease agreement has to be valid. It cannot be a lease agreement that has been expired, that you're coming with that document and saying, hey, I'm still on this address. No, we won't accept it. You'd have to ensure that your landlord renews this lease agreement for you. You can come in with that to change your address.
Okay. Ms. Huggins, the basic administration, I've heard this expression used. It's just explain, what is basic administration?
Okay, the basic administration is the system we use to register persons. It helps us keep a population count. Also, this system is also used within the Dutch Kingdom. So the Netherlands, Curaçao, Bonaire, the Dutch Kingdom, And once you're deregistering, you have to bring proof that you have deregistered from, for example, Curaçao, in order to register in St. Martin. Right. So you cannot be registered in two countries at the same time.
Yeah, can't be double dipping, huh?
No.
When one leaves the island to live abroad, what is the procedure one must adhere to? Because I think it gets into the heart of what you mentioned there, Ms. Huggins, which is the deregistration process. Ms. Marlin, how does one go about, or should keep in mind, when they are leaving the island? Get into the explanation of how the deregistration process works.
Okay, so the whole population of St. Martin, once you're leaving to any island, not just any island in the Dutch Kingdom, but if you're going to the US, you're going to Jamaica, you're going to the Dominican Republic, the law states that you have to deregister yourself out of the basic administration. We encourage the whole population of St. Martin that they need to get deregistered once they're leaving to any country, not just Holland, not Aruba, not Curaçao. Once you're leaving to the US, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, wherever you're going to, you need to be deregistered out of the basic administration. We encourage the public that they deregister at least 5 days prior to leaving. This is to ensure that whatever they have, SZV or anything, is not canceled before time, and to prevent that in case an accident or something happens to them, that they're still insured.
Okay. Does it affect pension?
No, it don't.
It does not?
No.
Okay. That was one of my concerns, that you register out of the country, you're not properly registered or acknowledged in the basic administration if it affects your pension at some point.
No, it don't. It don't affect your pension. Why? Because once you were paying into the pension years, you will still get your pension. To make clarity, we also render service where clients submit their pension forms or orphan pensions or widow pensions to the SZV department. That documentation comes to our department, and we will verify if the information that the customer provided to the SZV is accurate and if the dates that they provided to them are good. And persons who do not live here, they submit bank addresses, numbers from away.
Okay.
So that is still possible. You are entitled to your pension. You paid into it.
Awesome. All right. You did mention a penalty for those that are just tuning in. Is there a penalty for having an address registered at the civil registry while at the same time you're living somewhere else? Explain the penalties that are involved, if there are any.
Yes, there's a penalty of 2,000 guilders. By law, you are to be registered on the correct address.
Explain the process, or if one is deregistered, can one vote in an election?
No, they can't.
Really? Why can't I vote in my election if I ain't registered?
You can only vote.
Trick
Only
question.
legal residents registered on St. Martin, Dutch residents registered on St. Martin are entitled to vote. And I believe that's why we are encountering so much issues with the cleanup project.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of persons that are Dutch and are living in other countries. We have Dutch persons who are living in Holland that also are still registered here in St. Martin as well. And the persons who are registered in Holland and here don't want to lose their help in Holland, but others don't want to lose their voting rights here in St. Martin. And by law, you're not allowed to be registered in both places, so you have to pick where exactly you would like to be registered.
All right. Okay, well, here's a scenario for you. The person who lives in the Netherlands, and they decide to relocate and they're coming to St. Martin. Now, the same applies for them, I believe. They have to register out of the Netherlands
Yes,
and
that's
register
correct.
into St. Martin.
Yes.
But let's just say they have an election back in the Netherlands, where they're originally from. Can they vote there?
Once you're not
So-
registered in the Netherlands, I know there's one election that you cannot vote, but if I'm not mistaken, for the second chamber, where all the islands were allowed to vote, where we can name Miss Walter get a lot of votes in the Caribbean from the persons who could have voted, and that was in the second chamber. So for the general election, I believe you cannot vote if you're not registered there, but for the second chamber, you can.
All right. Sounds like as if we have some work to do from
Yes,
our
we
end,
do.
Yes.
legislation-wise, to
Yes.
allow this to happen, at least throughout the kingdom, that we can participate in our local elections when it's taking place, even if we have, people who are legally of age that are living in the Netherlands.
Yes.
Okay. Ladies, I want to get into the topic of passports. And we're going to do that in our next segment coming up momentarily. So stay with us. We're going to continue in our conversation with Ms. Marlin and Ms. Huggins to get into how your passports work and make sure that yours is updated at all times, because after all, your identity is your responsibility. Stay tuned. My conversation with the Civil Registry continues after these public service announcements.
During the hurricane season, a potential tropical cyclone can produce rainfall that can cause flash flooding and rockfalls. Stay away from flood-prone areas during heavy rainfall, such as Jump Up Casino on Emil Plain Road in Phillipsburg, ATLH Road Roundabout, L.B. Scott Road from Emilio Wilson Park until Cake House Supermarket, Zaker's Gut from Petro Plus gas station until the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Welgelaken Road K Hill from Welgelaken Road Roundabout until the Wantete Loke Roundabout, Beacon Hill Road from Sunset Bar and Grill until the beginning of White Sands Road, and Rhine Road, also known as Mullet Bay Road, after Sonesto Maho Beach Hotel to the entrance of Kupokoi from the intersection of the University Drive until the intersection of Rio Grande. For more information on how you can keep yourself and your family safe this hurricane season, visit stmartingolf.org/hurricane. This public service announcement is brought to you by the government of St. Martin.
St. Martin, listen up. The Civil Registry Department has taken 7 services online. That's right, you can now request a family tree, local address change, migration deregistration, a registration form, request for existing certificates, transfer your driver's license, and a driver's license declaration, all online. Go to services.stmartingolf.org/civil registry and easily complete a request form for the service that you need. You can also pay for the services online using a major credit card or debit card and receive certain final products digitally as well. No traffic jams, no waiting in lines. And if you're on island or off, you now have full digital access to 7 civil registry services at services.stmartingolf.org/civil registry. That's services.stmartingolf.org/civil registry. For more information, call 542-0652. Now go online and request your service form today. Hi, everyone. If you're just tuning in, I'm having a conversation with the representatives of the Civil Registry as we're talking about services rendered to you, the people of St. Martin. PSC, Public Service Center, celebrating 10 years of service to the country as of 2023. And we're talking to Ms. Keisha Huggins, the senior back office worker, and section head front office, Ms. Anna Marlin. Ladies, let's get into the topic now of passports, the most crucial identifying document, in my opinion, that we have in our country. Can people travel on any other document? these days? Because I remember the old school days, our parents used to say, yeah, man, I used to go Curacao on my ID.
Yes, it's allowed.
Is that still allowed?
Yes, it is. And Curacao have amended their law where they are allowing persons to travel with their ID card also.
Okay.
I believe this year, they changed it so you can travel with your ID card.
And this
In
is
the
in the
kingdom.
kingdom.
Yes.
All right. So you can travel on an ID. All right. How long does it take to get your passport these days after applying, Ms. Huggins?
It takes a maximum of 4 weeks. It can come before the 4-week period. When it does, we give the client a call that the passport is here and they can come and pick it up.
Okay. Are passports issued on St. Martin?
They are not, they are made in the Netherlands, but we do issue it here to our clients here.
Yeah. So we're the administration for accepting the applications, but they are created in the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What is recommended when it comes to the amount of time one should keep in mind before your passport expires? The amount of time to go about the renewal process, because sometimes, especially now we're at 10 years, people can lapse. But what is the recommended amount of time that one should renew their passport within?
I would say 4 weeks before the passport expires, they can renew it. Reason being that, like I mentioned, the maximum time is 4 weeks for the passport to come back. You can renew it if it's 5 weeks or longer. That's okay. But we do advise persons to please check their passports before booking vacations.
Okay.
We do have our peak seasons, which is around the summertime, family vacations, and also Christmas, and also I think the October midterm break. Families like to take that week off. So please check your passports before booking vacations.
You sound very urgent.
Yes.
Share the experiences.
Yes,
Yes.
our phones ring off the hook.
This summer, it was
Crazy.
an experience out of this world.
Really?
Yes.
Where we had many persons who had tickets bought, wanted earlier appointments, or on the day that they were traveling, they noticed that their passport were expired. I need a birth certificate urgently to go to the governor's cabinet. I need an emergency passport. So the work overload on the civil registry department and on the governor's cabinet this summer, I believe, was a little extreme.
A little bit higher.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, and
Yes.
higher than expected. For my past 15 years, I know it's always high
Busy.
demand, but
Yes.
this summer, it was extreme.
Yes.
It was really extreme. And then we need to remind the public that you cannot travel to the U.S. with an emergency passport. So
Passport.
you need to ensure that your national passport is valid at all times.
Okay. All right. Now I definitely get a good sense of the urgency.
Yes.
And I would dare to say, Ms. Huggins, 4 weeks might still be cutting it close. I would recommend 6 months. If you knew, it's because 10 years, you're sitting on a passport for 10 years. And that leads to the next question concerning what happens when one might not be the avid traveler, okay, but you let your passport expire. What happens in that scenario where your passport, after 10 years, it expires and you do not renew it? What happens? What is the threat that a person can face in that situation?
There is an article in the law that states if you do not renew your passport after 13 years, you can lose your Dutch nationality. But there are also other articles added to this 13 years. It's not that if you're in St. Martin and you don't renew your passport for 13 years that you will just lose it like that. This is if you're in another country and you never request the Dutch passport or you didn't renew it and you obtain another nationality voluntarily, then you have the risk of losing your nationality. So please, before accepting another nationality, please ask the risk of it if you are entitled to keep your nationality. We've been having a lot of cases like this lately that person said, hey, the embassy told me I could keep my nationality, and that is not correct.
Okay, so that leads us into the conversation about dual nationality. Let's start there. How is dual nationality viewed in the Kingdom of the Netherlands?
That's a very tricky question because I know in the Netherlands they not too. It's kind of frowned upon if you have too much nationalities. Here in St. Martin, we at the Civil Registry, we do not really see an issue to that. Also, it depends on certain countries where you're allowed to have more nationalities. And then it also goes to your family line. So if one parent is Dutch and another parent is Jamaican, you as the child can have the both nationalities. You are entitled to the both nationalities. And as my colleague just mentioned, if you go and naturalize, that's where the losing of the nationality comes into play. So I think persons, residents are, somewhat not clear
Right.
of how it
How
actually
it
works. Yes.
Okay, so that's the clarity that I would like to make sure we hone in on. So it's okay and it's not frowned upon in St. Martin. However, we want people to understand there's some things you need to keep in mind. So if you are living off of the island and you are dual nationality, you have to ensure that those passports are renewed in a timely fashion.
Yes.
How is the process then handled with the renewal of the passport when you're overseas?
So, like the governor's cabinet here, the governor cabinet help the clients that are not registered at the civil registry department. The civil registry department help the clients that are registered in St. Martin.
Okay.
So around the world, we have Dutch embassies. So you don't necessarily need to be registered at the civil registry department to renew your passport. If you're living in Jamaica, Suriname, Dominican Republic, you go to the closest Dutch embassy that you have to renew your Dutch passport. So Jamaica doesn't have a Dutch embassy anymore, but for example, the Dominican Republic has one. The person can travel to the Dominican Republic to renew their passport. They can even travel to St. Martin and renew their Dutch passport at the governor's cabinet.
When a person changes their identity, first name change, last name change, especially in the situation where children have the ability to be able to hyphenate their names after the age of 18, tell us the effect of that on one's passport.
Well, in cases like that, they have to change their passport because they're no longer carrying that one name anymore if it's hyphenated. Like you said, that goes to your identity. If I am no longer Miss Huggins, I'm now Miss Huggins Duzong, then I have to change my passport. I have to change my ID. I have to change my driver's license. Everything has to change.
Notice a little smile there. I'm not too sure if you just tried to incite someone to marry you. Just kidding. Just kidding. How does the process work when it comes to online services these days? We're trying to get everyone streamlined to be able to use online services. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about how we are growing more efficient by using the internet. How is that working out when it comes to the services you render?
So it's going quite well. We've been getting a lot of requests. For right now, the only services that we have online are the registration forms, certificates, change of address, and the deregistering process.
Okay.
Everything else, the client has to make an appointment and come to the department. This online service gives the client the opportunity to submit their request via online. The same questions, requirements that are needed at the office are on the online site. Your address has to be correct. If your address does not match with what we have in the system, unfortunately, we deny the process and ask the client to please verify their address or to change their address at the civil registry department. And then they will receive once it's approved, we will send them a link. The link is going to give them the payment option. We ask the clients to please use this link to make the payment option and not go directly to banking online and make this the payment.
Okay.
It confuses the process a little bit because then the client will appear by the window and state, hey, but I paid for it already. And when we're looking at the online service, it's stating that the client didn't pay. So they have to follow the link that they're sent stating, make the payment via this way with a debit or a credit card.
Okay. When it comes to the helping seniors, that was one of the issues that I realized that a lot of our seniors don't really acclimate well to the new technology as quickly. What does the Civil Registry do to help our senior citizens to ensure that they are renewing their passports on time? Because I could see them having a challenge with it. So is there any extra services offered?
Yes, we do house visits. If the seniors cannot come to the Civil Registry Department, we will provide a house visit for them. If it's a real emergency, we will come any day, but normally we try to ensure that the house visits are done on Wednesdays afternoon when the department is closed.
Okay. Can the Dutch nationality be retracted? And if so, how or why?
Yes, it can.
Yes, it can.
Once you accept, like I mentioned previously, once you accept another nationality voluntarily, you can lose your Dutch nationality. That's one of the ways. I, as a person, can also go to the governor's cabinet and state I no longer want to have the Dutch nationality and give up my Dutch rights. But you cannot stay stateless. You need to have another nationality before you can lose the Dutch nationality.
Anything coming down the pipeline when it comes to advancement of technology, services, anything you guys can mention, especially how, again, the online services are increasing. So I think, like you mentioned, only a few services are there. Is the goal to add more services to the online capabilities?
I believe is a project that we're working to have in the long run, to have many other services, as much as possible, other services online. I think it's something that is being worked with the e-government.
Okay.
To have other services online and to have less influx of customers come into the building. I know at first it will be something a little hard to adapt to as our appointments online, but it should be something good for the community of St. Martin.
Absolutely.
Makes the process a little easier.
Absolutely. Ladies, I want to provide you the opportunity now as we're closing out to provide final words to the public of St. Martin as it relates to your respective disciplines as service representatives. Start with you, Ms. Huggins.
Okay. Final words.
Final words.
Okay, so I would like to say, like I mentioned before as well, when you come to renew your documentation, please do it in a timely manner. Also, you can make use of our online services when in terms of registration forms. Registration forms are also very high in demand. So if you know you cannot make it to our office, it's very helpful and useful to do it online in the comfort of your office or in the comfort of your own home at your own pace. You can do that online. So make use of that. And I think that is it.
Thank you. Ms. Marlin.
I want to encourage the community of St. Martin to please ensure that all their information is accurate by the Civil Registry Department. If you have moved, please change your address. If you have left the island, please deregister. If your passport is expired, make an appointment to renew your passport. Let's avoid a hassle that if you have an emergency, that we have to try and get you a passport as soon as possible. Make sure if you're married, register your marriage by the Civil Registry. Your spouse has passed, bring in that documentations. We have many persons that have passed abroad and the family members have not brought in the death certificate. We implore to the community to please bring in those documents for us, as this is also part of our cleanup project where we have many persons have passed and they're still in the basic administration. Please assist us to have a clean administration.
Team Civil Registry Department, St. Martin, Miss Anna Marlin and Miss Keishan Huggins. Ladies, thank you so much for being a part of this Inside Government interview.
Okay, thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure.
And to our radio listeners, television viewers, online viewers, thank you for being a part of this edition of Inside Government. If you've missed my conversation with Miss Marlin and Miss Huggins, be sure to catch a video on demand at the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin at facebook.com/SXMGOV. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel of the Government of St. Martin, youtube.com/Government of St. Martin. And for audio playback, tune in to St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM throughout the course of the day. On behalf of all my colleagues down at the Civil Registry Department under the Ministry of General Affairs and all of us here at the Department of Communication, I'm Cedric Peterson. Thanks so much for tuning in.